Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's video. We're going to have a look at the next month with the Japanese and CFS B2 months. It's JMA Friday, as always on a Friday, having a look at the weather for next month. This takes us to the start of February, so we're going to go into the final month of the winter with this update. Hasn't been much winter in terms of snow, but it's not been too bad in terms of frost, I don't think. But we haven't had any snow at all, so not very good on that part of the winter. We'll see whether there's any sign of wintry conditions ahead. Later on, we'll have a look at GFS ensembles this evening, going into the second half of January with all of the different GFS ensemble members. So I'll get on with JMA Friday for you in a second. Before you get on with that, just say about the ads. It's these articles on all pages. Have to browse widgets to click through links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you have me a space for my website. And thanks very much for doing that. We'll start off with JMA. This is broken down into weekly periods from the Northern Hemisphere down. 500 millibar height. So the first week period will be taking us from today, from the 6th through to the 13th of January. Blue extrapolates low pressure, and red, yellow, orange extrapolates to high pressure. So for the coming week, we've still got a ridge out to the west of the country, and then low pressure up to the north, and also, of course, this big trough extending down into the east of Europe. That's where all the cold air has gone, where it is and has gone, and that continues. It will be moderating gradually over weekend into the start of next week, but I think even into next week, we'll still be keeping it very cold down across the southeastern part of Europe. For us, we're actually in more of an Atlantic flow, so it's not overly cold. In fact, as we go into next week, we might start off with some mild weather, but later on, I think it will begin to turn somewhat colder. As we go through into week 2, and this takes us from the 13th through to 20th of January, this one looks rather different. We've got ridging pulling right way out into the western part of the Atlantic, going over towards America and Newfoundland. Now, we've got this trough through, it's a rather odd looking chart, we've got this trough through many parts of Europe, and I would assume there's some quite cold air associated with that trough. The jet stream would be doing something like that, so I think we are placed on the cold side of January. It just looks like much of Europe is covered by quite a deep, and I would have thought fairly cold trough, so maybe going into the middle part of January there is a little bit of wintry potential there from that chart. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which takes us from the 20th of January through to the 3rd of February. And what we see with this one is that low pressure generally to the west of the UK. So I think we're re-establishing a west-southwest type flow. Now, we have got this yellow area around Svalbard going down in towards Scandinavia. So that's a bit of blocking up there. So it might be a battleground situation, but really cold out, I think, is down here into sort of western parts of Russia and that sort of area. But this high pressure, or above average heights just here, is quite interesting. It might be the start. Remember, this is a 2-week anomaly, so it could be a bit transitional. It might be the start of some sort of high pressure getting going to our northeast. If that is the case, if we are going to get an area of high pressure setting up here, with the low pressure down here, we might have a bit of a battle going on with the low pressure trying to bring up the mild air from the southwest, this high pressure from the northeast, trying to bring cold air in from the east. So that's one to keep an eye on as we go through to the end of January into the start of February. So let's see how the temperature and precipitation anomalies are shaping up with this. So going back to the first weekly period, which is the 6th through to the 13th of January, this British just here in the top right-hand corner of the chart, as you're looking at it. We've got the ridge out to the west of us for this one, and of course got this very cold trough extending down into the southeast of Europe. So the precipitation anomaly for the coming week looks generally drier than average. There we go, in those yellow colours. So below average precipitation for the coming week, going to be quite dry. Temperature anomalies are coming out milder than average as well, so fairly dry and mild week coming up, albeit we are starting off quite cold today, and probably do get colder again towards the back end of next week, but in between, fairly extended mild period over weekend into the start of next week. Week 2, which is the 13th through to 20th of January, this is that rather odd looking chart with just low pressure looks like it's sitting more or less, or below average heights anyway, sitting more or less across the whole of Europe, with this ridge pulling back towards Newfoundland. I think we're going on to the cold side of a jet there, so let's have a look at temperatures first. We expect this to be a cooler week, and that's what it's showing. Now, it's still coming out close to average with the temperature anomaly, but I think we are hinting at going a bit colder than average there, actually, through that middle week of January. And precipitation is coming back as well, so it looks colder and wetter, really, as we're going through the 13th through 20th of January. But the temperature's lowering. There might be a little bit of wintry potential there, particularly so, I would have thought, for the north. Then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, when we've got the trough out to the west of us. That's where the low pressure is. We can't see Scandinavia and the northern latitudes, but we know we've got a ridge somewhere up here, albeit fairly weak one. So it looks like it might be some sort of battleground UK type situation, with the trough trying to bring in the mild air off the Atlantic, and that ridge trying to bring in perhaps colder easterlies. Temperature anomalies for those final 2 weeks, the end of January and start of February, are more or less a little bit milder than average. So it is seeing a fairly mild couple of weeks coming up there. Remember, that is a 2-week period, so it might be transition. It could be that week 3, for example, is very mild, and then week 4 is a lot colder, or vice versa. You might have it quite cold in week 3, and then week 4 turns very mild. So you always have to bear in mind, with 2 weekly or more anomalies, that it might not be quite as straightforward and clear-cut as it first appears. The precipitation anomaly is also above average as well, so it looks like I have quite a wet end to January, actually starting off fairly cold and then maybe going a bit milder later. But it is indicative that height anomaly, I'll just go back to it, this one, it is indicative that we might be having a little bit of a battle taking place. We'll have to see next week whether this area above average heights here is strengthened at all as we go through to the end of January and start of February. CFS V2 next, and again, these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from today, the 6th through 12th of January. Very similar to what the JMA is doing for the coming week. Got that ridge out to west. The cold trough is into the southeast of Europe. That's where winter is. If you want to find some snow, go down to the Balkans. They'll have plenty of it in the coming week. Also, places like Poland will be having a lot of snow. And I assume there will be snow turning up down into Greece as well. Probably not for the holiday islands, but I think some places in Greece will definitely be having snow this week. And you don't be surprised if you do hear about snow turning up, or sort of freak snowfalls turning up over the holiday islands. So we've got that ridge out to west, and the jet stream's going something like that for the coming week. It means we're generally on the mild side of the jet stream, with a fair amount of dry weather. We'll turn a little bit more and settle later next week. Week 2, which is going through to the 13th to the 19th of January. Very similar again to a JMA. This is pulling the heights out towards the east coast of America, but we do have a weak ridge there still extending through Spain and Portugal. You've got to get the heights out of Spain and Portugal and set up low pressure down there for us to get sustained cold weather. Anyway, we've got the heights pulling out in towards America, so we've got this trough through central parts of Europe, and that probably does place us on the colder side of the jet stream. So that does look cold. I wouldn't go over the top with saying severe winter weather and loads of snow or anything like that, but I think through the middle part of January we probably do get a colder interlude, and for the north that could deliver some snow. I think for the south the risk of snow is probably lower, but it's a colder chart that as we go through into that middle phase of the month. Then we get to week 3, which is the 20th to 26th of January. Again, we've got the heights through the Atlantic there. We've got that trough up to the northeast, and again the flow is probably northwest southeast if anything, so probably reverting back more to an Atlantic influence. Could still be quite cool, but probably not as cold as that second weekly anomaly. And then week 4, which takes us to the end of January, start of February, goes from the 27th of January through to 2nd of February. This one doesn't look very good for cold weather at all. We're centering the heights to the south then, and low pressures around Greenland and Iceland, which means the flow is back into the west. That just looks mild, possibly even very mild, and maybe with a little bit of a taste of spring perhaps there as we go through into the start of February. Temperature anomalies look like this. The coming week is going to be milder than average, so both models in agreement with that. We go through to week 2, where the temperature anomaly is a bit colder. So again, both models in agreement that this middle phase of January does hold some colder potential. Don't go over the top thinking it's going to be severe weather and lots of snow. It isn't that kind of cold, but just perhaps going a little bit colder than average there. Maybe for the north, some wintry potential as well from the 13th through to the 19th of January. 20th, 26th, we're back in the flow more towards the northwest, so more of an Atlantic influence means the temperature anomaly starts to go back above average, just a little bit above average, not a big anomaly, but certainly warmer there as we go through to week 3. And then week 4, that's when we're setting up a zonal flow, or re-establishing a zonal flow. So 27th to January to 2nd of February comes out significantly milder than average. Other than this middle phase of January, overall it is looking quite mild, I think, with these two models. The precipitation anomaly for CFS V2 finally, the coming week looks more or less on the drier than average side. Week 2, which is the colder week, that one is also a bit more unsettled as well. So, yes, there might be a little bit of wintry potential in there, especially for the north. Week 3, we lose the signal. Week 3, it starts to weaken. It just looks average. And that's the case for week 4 as well. I think overall, probably going drier than average again at the end of January and into the start of February. So not a great deal doing, really, for people that want cold weather, and certainly not a great deal doing in terms of snow. There is this colder phase coming up through the middle part of January, but on either side, it's looking fairly mildish, nothing overly cold. And as we go through to the start of February, maybe in some hints, certainly with CFS, things could get quite mild. So that's how it's looking today. Could all look very different next week. As ever, long-range forecasting is highly experimental, and these models are not to be relied upon. They do chop and change quite a lot on a week-by-week basis. We'll see what they show again next week. Later on today, I'll have a look at GFS ensembles. That takes into the second half of January. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching.